Hey, welcome to Color Up. So do I really hate come bets? Not really. Do I use come bets that often? Again, not really. Today's video, I want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of come bets, and then I'm going to compare them with a converted come bet. So we'll talk a little bit about what that is, and then I'll roll out an example of the difference between a come bet player and a converted come bet player is. So let's get right to it. Let me first quickly describe what a come bet is. You might be familiar with the pass line bet. When the puck is off, 7 or 11 wins, 2, 3, or 12 loses. Any other number, if we roll an 8, now our pass line bet is a bet on the 8. The come bet works exactly the same way, except for it's when the puck is on. Think of it like a game within a game. So we make our $10 bet, 7 or 11, we win the bet, 2, 3, or 12, we lose the bet. If any other number rolls, that becomes our bet. Now the puck doesn't move, our bets move. So this come bet, let's say the 5 rolls, your bet would move inside the 5. Another way to think about the come bet is you're letting the dice decide which number you bet on. So whatever the dice roll, in this case it rolled a 5, now we're betting on the 5. If we make another come bet and a 10 rolls, well now we're going to be betting on the 10. So we're letting the dice decide what number we're betting on. Now let me cover some of the advantages and disadvantages that people argue about when it comes to the come bet. Now like the pass line bet, the come bet for the initial first roll or come out roll, there is a huge advantage on this bet. Let's look at it this way. With the 7, it wins on the 7, there are 6 ways to roll the 7. You also win with the 11, where there are 2 ways to roll the 11. So there are 8 dice combinations that will cause our bet to win. Now, what loses is the 12, the 2, and the 3. So 8 ways to win. Let me move them over here like this. 8 ways to win, 4 ways to lose. We have a 2-to-1 advantage for that first roll. That is a huge advantage for this bet. Now let me give you a counter argument for that. Let's say you started on the pass line, we could do 5 times odds, we're going to add $50 in odds. Now we have a great 2-to-1 advantage for our come bet. Do we want the 7 to roll? We would lose $60 here and only win 10. No, we don't really want the 7 to roll. We want a different number to roll to come up on these numbers. So if we don't want the 7 to roll, we're going to remove 6 of the combinations that we want to roll. Now only the 11 helps us. Now we're a 2-to-1 underdog to win this bet. So that pretty much negates the benefit of the come out roll. Now let's discuss house edge. This come bet is the same as the pass line, 1.4%. I really don't have a good argument against that house edge necessarily. 1.4%, if you place the 4 and 10, you're over 6%. 5 and 9 is 4%. The 6 and 8, you're getting close at 1.3 or 1.5%. So pretty good, pretty close. But again, it's a mathematical fact. The come bet is always going to be a lower house edge bet than betting on any of the numbers directly. What does that mean? That means the come bet over time, based on infinity, this bet will always lose less money compared to betting directly on the numbers. So if you're concerned about losing less amount of money over time, this would be by far the better way to go. Now another advantage of the come bet, let's say we roll a 10, it travels to the 10. You can now take odds. The nice thing about that is an odds bet, an additional bet on the number, and for a come bet, they'll just place it, offset it. That bet carries 0% house edge. So it is a true coin flip. And over time, you won't lose any money making this bet. Now, even with just double odds or double your flat line of bet, so here we have a $10 bet, $20 in odds. For the overall combined bet of $30, we're looking at a house edge of 0.6%, less than or just barely over 0.5% of house edge. That's pretty amazing when you're looking at 0.6, where a place bet of $30, you're looking at 6%, 4%, 1.5%. Even this is a great bet, but it's still double the house edge here. Now you can make a buy bet on the 4 and 10. And in that case, if they take the VIG only on a win, for instance, you can get the house edge down to 1.6 something. But again, it's still nearly triple of what it is, the house edge for a bet with odds. Now you can't argue with the math. A come bet with odds is just a mathematically better bet to make. Now another argument I often hear about come bets is that you have to roll the number twice in order for it to win. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this, so let me kind of explain it a little bit. A come bet and a pass line, I call them a two-stage bet. On the first stage, you're not looking to roll a number, you're looking for a 7-11, right, where you have the 2-to-1 advantage. Now, setting aside the fact that we don't want the 7 to roll. So we have a big advantage, that's stage 1. So that is a really good bet for us for the first come out roll. We're not really looking for a number, we're looking for that 7 or 11. Now let's say a place better bets $30 on the 9. If the shooter rolls a 9, what will happen is our come bet will move inside. He can then place $20 in odds. Our place better, he is going to get paid $42 right off the bat on the first time that the 9 rolls. Now the second time that the 9 rolls, again, our place better, he's going to get paid $42. Our come bet player, these bets actually move down unless you have a new bet coming on, a new come bet coming on, and they'll get paid. They get paid true odds though, right? So our $20 bet is going to get paid 30 for the odds. Our flat bet is going to get paid 1-to-1. So in this case, this bet is going to get paid $40. Now, if he wanted to get back on the 9, he would have to make another come bet if he didn't already have a come bet in place. So he'd have to roll a 9 for it to move up and then roll again for it to win. Meanwhile, this player is going to get paid every time. So I can see where people say that you have to roll the number twice, but really because it's a two-stage bet, I don't really necessarily agree with that. But when you kind of look at a situation like that, it's hard not to, see, wow, this guy already got paid twice. This guy has got paid once and he has to make a new come bet to come back on. Now here's another argument that you'll see. An equivalent bet, we have $30, $10 flat, $20 in odds, and $30 straight up. Gets paid $42, gets paid $40. Place bets actually do get paid more on a 3, 4, 5 times table. The same amount, depending on which number, the same amount or more by making a place bet. Once you're at a 5 times table and you bet 5 times in odds, 6 times, 10 times, 20 times, you're always going to get paid more making a bet with odds than the place bet. And then finally, let's look at one last argument, and that is that come bets are contract bets. So let's say our 8 rolls, the puck comes off, this player gets paid, great. What does it mean that a come bet is a contract bet? Well, even though our puck is off, this bet is always working. So again, the puck's off, we want to roll a 7, right? Well, if we roll a 7, our come bet will lose. Our odds are off, but our come bet is a contract bet. We cannot remove it down, we can't lower it. It's a contract bet. Our place bet, it follows the puck. By default, it's just off, so we don't have to worry about a 7. You can also ask the dealer, if you'd like, to turn your bet on. You could increase this bet, you could decrease this bet. You could tell the dealer, hey, you know what, make it look like a $10 bet. So we would get $20 back in change, and he'd set you up as a $10 bet, as long as it meets the minimum table amount. Our come better, he can lower or raise his odds bet, as long, again, dealing with table maximum or minimums. But the contract bet, he cannot remove or lower. You can add more to it. It would be considered a put bet, technically, and it's not really good for the player. I discussed in other videos, you don't want to get into put betting. So let me quickly recap. 2-to-1 advantage to win on the very first come out roll. You always have a lower house edge bet. When your bet moves to a number, you can always add an additional odds bet at 0%, which is amazing. There's no other bet like it in the casino. Some of the disadvantages, you have to roll your number twice to win. And again, that's borderline kind of a myth in my book. It is a contract bet, so you can't remove it if you wanted to. And it does pay less than an equivalent size place bet, at least until you're at a table that's 5 times or more. So now that we've had a pretty thorough conversation about what the come bet is and the advantages and disadvantages, I want to tell you about a converted come bet. What does that mean? Well, we said that a come bet, we like it because the dice determine what number. So if we roll a 9, the bet will move to a 9, and we'll place $20 in odds for a $30 bet. A converted come bet would be whenever you see the 9 rolled, we'll just place the 9 for the same amount. And if the 9 rolls again, or the second time, both players will be a winner. So with the points on the 10, both players, let's say this player wants to make another come bet, and we roll a 6. He'll move up, he'll add his, let's say, double odds. Our converted come bet player will just then bet $30 on the 6. So they're accomplishing the same thing. They'll get paid a little bit differently, but our come bets do have that first roll advantage or disadvantage depending on how you look at it. So explaining this has taken quite a bit of time. I am going to roll this out, but I'll put it in a separate video. I'll release them at the same time so you can watch them back to back. I'll go ahead and link it up to here. So I'm going to roll it out and see which is better, the come bet with odds or the converted come bet.